Hey everyone, thank you for watching this special episode 6, Revenge of the Tej. I'm gonna run out of these eventually. Anyway, this episode is very special because this is hands down my largest design and build to date, and I'm super proud of it. This video is going to show you a time-lapse construction of my brand new original design, Off-Road Dreams Bed, Model JT. Let's go. Okay, so this awesome bed has been designed from the ground up to be a DIY project for you. The complete build plans are available on our Etsy page, and there's a link below in the description for you to make it yours and build your own awesome JT. As you can see from the plans, you have a full material and cut list available. And I do recommend, as you see here in the video, that you cut all of the 2x and 1x boards down to their designated lengths first, and then mark each one with a number on the end so that you can make assembly easier later on. And after cutting them is a great time to sand everything down to a nice smooth finish. This is going to be something that's painted or stained later possibly, or even just left natural, but we want to take our time to really make the smoothness of each piece very, very good so that it directly translates to a comfortable bed for your little dude or dudette when you're done. And we'll save cutting the plywood pieces for later, and we're going to jump right into step 1, which is chassis construction. The dimensions in the instructions show exactly where to attach each piece, and all is relatively straightforward through step 2. Now, when we get to step 3, you'll notice the instructions are to drill a 1/2 inch hole partially through the completed upper frame. Please take care not to drill all the way through the upper frame. As a top tip, you can take a piece of masking tape or any tape and measure 3/4 of an inch up from your drill bit and wrap the tape around the drill bit there. This way, as you drill into the frame, you'll have a clearly visible stopping point when the tape reaches the frame. And you'll drill 20 of these holes, so take your time with the process. Make sure that you understand it fully. Rewatch this video a couple of times if you're unsure. But this is going to allow the 2.5-inch screws to have enough depth to reach through the subframe, securing the upper and subframe together firmly. Steps 4 through 6 show where to attach the legs and wheel mounts. Make sure these are equal and the frame sits level when they're all connected. If anything is off balance, take note of which leg is longer and trim it slightly to get everything even. Now in steps 7 through 10, we get to outline the shapes we're going to need to cut out of the plywood. Once everything is marked, you can use a circular saw and a jigsaw to cut out all the pieces and sand them to a smooth finish. This is also an opportunity to make any personal changes you'd like to some of the body lines. Want a shorter roof line or a bigger rear window? Go for it. Make it yours. The only dimensions you should not alter are the length and width of the body and the diameter of the wheels. Otherwise, go crazy. And let me see those changes. I love all of them. Send them to our social media and we'll check them out and post them. In step 11, we'll attach the slats we cut from the plywood onto the completed frame from steps 1 through 6. And now in step 12, we start working on the flare setup by firstly mocking up the body. These flares are climbing gold, and if your kids are anything like mine, they will constantly be climbing on and around these perfect toddler-sized footholds. So that said, if you don't want your kids climbing around their bed at all hours, I highly suggest you skip this step. For everyone else, it's important to take this entire process through step 18 very slowly because it definitely requires precision and patience to get this right. As you notice in the instructions, there's no exact dimensions for these flares, and that's because I've found it much easier to cut them as one-off pieces based off of each other piece. That way, they always match up perfectly. And I'll show you how to do that. First off, as step 13 says, each piece shown in light blue in the instructions should have been cut already from our cutting phase before step 1. Now we're going to take each of these pieces, which are intentionally longer than needed, and we're going to begin to set them up for cutting the angles. Notice in step 14, the placement of the first 3 pieces of the flares. These are the horizontal pieces, and the dimensions of each are shown to their center and top or bottom. Attach these first. Then, in steps 15 and 16, attach the front and rear bumpers also. Now in step 17, you will place the vertical pieces of the flares on top of the horizontal ones as shown in the diagram. Then you will use a pencil to mark where the pieces intersect to create the angles. And important here, make sure you mark both pieces, the horizontal and the vertical. They're each going to receive a cut. These marks are going to show you what to cut on each piece, and once they're cut, the pieces will butt up to each other perfectly. Please take as much time as necessary on this step to understand all of this before cutting. If you need any additional help, please feel free to email me and I'll explain it more in depth. This is by far the most advanced step in the build, and once you have the process in mind, you can complete all cuts for each side and attach the flares to the body panels with 2.5-inch screws. Now, as we move on to step 19, we can make the wheels. This is a personal preference step of the build. Some may choose to only build 2 wheels, for example, if the bed is going to be placed against a wall. Also, some may choose not to build the rear spare wheel in the back. And whatever you opt for in this process is the same for all the wheels as the instructions describe in detail. Steps 20 through 22 also show how to attach each completed wheel to the frame. Now this is a temporary step as the wheels are going to be removed when the bed is transported into the room it's going in. So a top tip on these steps is similar to the Fender flares. Make a mark on each wheel and its corresponding axle so that you can put them back where they go easily in the reassembly process. If you're making a step ladder, the instructions have the dimensions at step 23. I will say though that my 3-year-old and 1-year-old both immediately rejected this idea and loved to just climb up on the bed on the wheels, tires, flares, bumpers, everything but the stairs. So I've called out that this step is entirely optional, but it's there if you want it. Finally, we get to paint. Step 24 is for all of the creative makers and helpers in your project crew. There's so many fun ideas and directions to take your awesome bed, and I highly recommend have so much fun with this part. Make it yours. 2 neat callouts that I will suggest is to paint the tires, which are the 1-bys from the cut list, and the flares and body below the flares black. The reason is this makes them look like tires, obviously, but the other contrast from the flares down highlights whatever other colors you pick for the bed. I suggest a spray paint to get in the nooks and gaps of the tires. Also, I used some acrylic, silver, and white paint, and I dry brushed some curved lines to create the effect of headlights on the front of the Jeep. Steps 25 through 32 show you how to assemble the pieces after you bring them into the room where the bed will be set up. A few callouts for these steps. Number 1, pay attention to the size of the screws required at each step. Don't use the wrong length or you could damage the body panels. Number two, make sure that you've pre-drilled and countersunk every screw hole. You don't want any splits or blowouts. And third, expect that you will probably chip some paint or stain in this process, and that's okay. You should plan to touch up anything needed after assembly is done. Think of, for example, screw heads. A little touch of paint on those and the screw head disappears and blends into the body. So after bringing this into the room and putting it all back together, plan on doing a little bit of touch-up paint. Number four, there is some creative wiggle room here in steps 30 and 31, for example. Where the optional taillights and spare tire go is entirely up to you. Make it yours with your own layout and spacing. I really want to see a build where someone offsets their spare tire, kind of like an old Land Cruiser. That would be pretty rad. Number five, this is a really cool, fun step for everybody to go do. Visit your local dollar store and grab some accessories. For example, I got a package of metallic letters, A through Z, and I put my boy's initials on his bed right next to where the car manufacturer would have put the model name. And please, let me see all your ideas. I'll be glad to feature them on our social media pages, and I love to see the creativity expand. And that's it. If you've made it this far, congrats! You are awesome sauce, and I'm positive your little dreamer is going to be over the moon for their new Off-Road Dreams bed. Get ready for that coveted Parent of the Year award and constant bragging about you by your kiddo. You are about to be the coolest ever, in case you weren't already, parent. And last but not least, if you liked this video and content, please click the like button below and consider subscribing to this great channel for more awesome content coming up. I'd like to thank you all so much for your support, and please let me know in the comments below if there's anything you'd like me to build next, or any ideas on what I can include in these videos to make the build easier for you. I love to hear from you and read your feedback. So, thank you for watching, have an awesome build, and as always, Maker Teej says, make it yours. Thanks.